At least we're getting 4 armor. Well, Azir is going through the ringer right now. Freak wanted to change him to be better in the hands of the average player, and in doing so, he dropped him down to 43% win rate, making just about every single mid laner in the game have going into Azir as their best matchup. By just clicking Azir in champ select and locking him in, you have dropped your team's chances of winning anywhere from 7 to 12%. That is on the level where your rate of success is on par with a game where your mid laner plays for 5 minutes and then AFKs for the rest of the match. In fact, because you can feed your opposing laner kills and gold by being bad at the game, your team probably has a statistically better chance of winning if you don't enter the lane at all or make any inputs. Hey everyone, I just thought that you should pay me and subscribe and comment, and this is an advertisement. Having played almost exclusively Azir since the changes dropped, I actually like them with an asterisk bigger than the sun disk. Here are the good parts of the first set of changes. The turret is actually usable now. I genuinely have nothing bad to say here. Great job. They made Q spam worse by lowering his Q's mana cost and decreasing its damage. This makes lanes into Azir a little less aggravating and no counterplay like. And oh no, that's it actually. That's all the good. They dropped Azir's health to being the 7th worst in the game at level 1, on par with another mid lane mage, Anivia. Except Anivia has her whole egg res gimmick and Azir does not. They dropped his mana again, and it's lower than every other mage in the game, except Rise, who, yeah. At level 2, you can use WQ 3 times before you're entirely out of mana. They also deleted a bunch of his attack speed and tried to compensate by giving him some of the best attack speed growth in the game. I thought this was going to be a fine change from the onset, but after playing with it for a while, this was absolutely a net nerf and removed a lot of the attack speed from the attack speed mage. But oh, I would like to report a murder. I suspect Azir mains will probably send a bomb threat to Riot's offices at 12333 West Olympic Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, and these changes will probably be cancelled, but they're so horrifically bad that I have to talk about them. This one change is the centerpiece. More than one soldier hitting a target won't do additional damage. Currently, each soldier on top of the first does an extra 25% damage. So 2 is 125% damage, 3 is 150, etc. That's all gone. To compensate, soldier damage is getting increased by 20 to 30%. Now, entirely on paper, that sounds fine, if an entirely pointless and confusing change which no one likes. But, oh no. Mid to late game focus. The time in the game where you can very reliably put out more than one soldier at a time. This will be a nerf, and it will feel absolutely terrible. Okay, but they must have some good rationale behind it. They're making this change so that it feels more intuitive. What? Listen to yourself. Having absolutely nothing happen when you hit people with more spears than just one is intuitive? In fact, all of their reasoning for making this change is flawed. It doesn't reinforce his character fantasy of having an army if you only need one soldier to do everything. He has an army that looks like this, not like this! Lastly, they say that they want Azir players to have soldiers in multiple different locations instead of all on top of someone. Here is an example of the situation they are trying to portray and they want you to be in. To have all of your flanks locked down but still be able to fight with just one soldier. The problem with that, as you can literally see in this footage, is that the soldiers go way too fast, and they cost way too much mana for you to just throw them down at every single flank. Now, there is that problem, but I also think this change is just insanely boring. One of the most fun parts of Azir is having to consider the risk of all-inning and blowing all of your cooldowns to secure a kill. Both yourself and all of your soldiers would be out of position if you get caught out, so you gotta be careful. Changing that would not only lower his skill ceiling, but also make him more boring because he's more safe, which is extremely unfun to play against already. Why would you make him more safe? This whole situation, if you can't tell, has been extremely frustrating to watch. If they want to fix Azir in the way that Freak intended, make him less good in pro play and more good for the average Joe, just get rid of the damage on his Q and buff him in other ways. Stop forcing him to buy an item which literally does not work on him. Last patch, they wanted to make it so that Nashor's Tooth, in their own words, was not a trap. It gives you a bunch of AP, a lot of attack speed, soon some ability haste, and this passive. Azir builds it because he's so incredibly desperate for any source of attack speed he can get his hands on. There's just one little tiny horrific failure of game design. Acaithian's Bite does not trigger on Azir's soldiers. To proc Acaithian's Bite, you have to have an attack which procs on hit effects. The most common are auto attacks, which is basically just you right-clicking things. Azir soldiers are also something where you right-click things, so it should work, but of course it doesn't. Azir soldiers proc on spell effects, not on hit effects. They're an ability rather than an attack, and so they can proc things like Liandry's or Luden's, but not Nashor's Tooth. Riot specifically wants Azir to build an item which he can't use a third of. Earlier this year, Radiant Virtue was added to the game. It procs when using a champion's ultimate, but Riot made a special interaction for Udyr, where it instead procs on his passive Awaken instead, which is wholly unique to that champ. The precedent is now there for items to have a specific interaction with champion kits, and if you want Azir to build Nashor's so bad, maybe make the item actually work on him. You could do this in one of two ways. You could give Nashor's a special unique interaction with Azir's soldiers, or hear me out, let Azir's soldiers proc on hit as well as on spell effects. I know that sounds crazy, but what's the worst that could happen? Listen, tell me, what's the worst? Crit Azir? He has precisely 0 AD scalings, so probably not. The most drastic change that could happen is Lichbane becoming part of his build path, and like 3 champions build it in the entire game. And he's been sat at sub 47% win rate for a decade, so maybe that's fine. Over the last few weeks, in Champ Select, I kept asking myself, do I want to like play my heart out and lose anyway, or do I want to play Dr. Mendo? Then my enemy laner locks in Riot's new 200 years darling, and well, and that settles that. Thanks to all my patrons, you are all quite lovely people. Love you all, and good night. Hopefully, I'll be a little bit more sane next week.